University. We're very happy to serve as a location for a discussion on U.S. foreign policy in Africa with Brother Obe and M1 and Brother M1 of Dead Prayers. I'm going to basically hand them the mic and let them tell you why they're here and what they're doing and who they are. From what I understand, this is interactive, right? Yes, okay, this is interactive, and I'm going to also get you all to give me a card or something. I don't get a card. All right, then.
Okay. Oh, Lord.
Oh, man. Get that in here. Stay together.
Hold on.
All right. Okay. Take the whole bottom.
Good afternoon. Hold the, yeah, you should just hold that part.
Okay. Sure it won't fall off again?
It shouldn't have.
Okay. Good afternoon. My name is Obe and M1. I'm the United States correspondent for the Herald, Zimbabwe's national newspaper.
Uhuru, and greetings to everyone. My name is Mutulu Olubala. I am one half of Dead Prayers, to tell it like it is. Everything is political, revolutionary cultural group or rap group. To all those who recognize that, and thank you for letting me be here.
Okay. It's definitely an honor to be here. I can't even put it in words because it's truly an honor and blessing and privilege to engage your community and engage other people who share a common plight and a common history and the same appetite for justice and for liberation that African people do. Part of the liberation process is having a chance to connect with new people who also want the torch as we pursue our total liberation and human dignity. And what you get the opportunity to do occasionally is to come across people who you've met through your growth and development on the front line fighting for our people. I first met Dr. Kamal 17 years ago in Washington, D.C. at UDC Miners Teachers College. We were organizing a program for the 33rd anniversary of the Sharpeville-Kwalanga massacre. For those of you who know the history of South Africa, then what is commonly referred to as South Africa, you know on March 21st, 1960 was the most significant demonstration that they had in their history. The Sharpeville-Kwalanga massacre was a protest against the PASS Act laws, and it was organized by the Pan-Africanist Congress of Azania, who prior to that moment had been the African National Congress's youth leader, and broke away on April 6, 1959, and started their own organization because they felt that the African National Congress, created in 1912, did not put enough emphasis on land. And they came up with the slogan, Izwele through Africa, the land is ours. So it was there that I met Dr. Kamal with my cousins who he taught at Langston University. And he was in town visiting, and when he found out about that program, he was delighted and wanted to come because he felt that there was a direct correlation between our efforts for reparations inside the United States borders, inside the Americas for that matter, and what was going on in Southern Africa. So it's excellent to reconnect with him. We're here today to talk about U.S. foreign policy in a broader scale, but we're going to get specific. We're going to focus on Zimbabwe and we're going to focus on Cuba. In the case of Cuba, it's because Cuba is our home away from home. And I say that because when you take a look at how 60% of their population lives, who are Africans, and you take a look at their relationship to healthcare in Cuba, you take a look at their relationship to education in Cuba, you take a look at their relationship to the struggle against HIV/AIDS in Cuba, you take a look at the fact that they have the lowest infant mortality rate in the world, the lowest HIV/AIDS rate in the world, the most advanced gerontology program for the elderly, when the Dominican Republic and Haiti and Jamaica can no longer care for their elderly, they push them into Cuba because of the quality treatment they receive there. So when you take a look at the fact that Africans there enjoy these liberties as a result of constant struggle, then Africans throughout this hemisphere must embrace that, must identify with that, must celebrate that, and must understand that they have a historical obligation to defend that. So we're here today to talk about how we're using hip-hop to lift the blockade on Cuba. In the case of Zimbabwe, we feel that Zimbabwe must become for African people what Palestine is for Arab and Muslim people, what Cuba is for Latin American people, what Bolivia is for indigenous people. A rallying point to unify around no matter where we are in the world. For example, here in the United States, Detroit has the largest Arab population. And if you talk to somebody who may have linkage to Kuwait, or to Saudi Arabia, or to Morocco, or to Algeria, they know they have a historical responsibility to fight against Zionism and to fight for the liberation of the Palestinians. You talk to someone from El Salvador, you talk to someone from Guatemala, you talk to someone from Ecuador, you talk to somebody from Costa Rica, you talk to someone from Honduras, they will talk to you for hours about how Cuba gave them the inspiration to duplicate that type of revolution right there where they live. So they understand that they must unify. You talk to indigenous people throughout this hemisphere, whether you talk to them in Peru, whether you talk to them in Costa Rica, they will talk to you about what Evo Morales is doing in Bolivia and how that has intensified their passion for self-determination. Even if you take a look at the American Indian Movement and International Indian Treaty Council inside United States borders. And since Africans we are human, we have the same feelings, we have the same sentiments, even though colonialism and slavery, they thought that by imposing these atrocities on us, we would accept ourselves as less than human, and that has not happened. So we need a country to rally around as well, and we tell you that that country is the Republic of Zimbabwe. As in the case earlier today, we had some beautiful time, quality time at the University of Houston, and they do a lot of work with Ghana. So obviously Kwame Nkrumah is an excellent way to segue into both Cuba and Zimbabwe. In the case of Zimbabwe, the president's first wife, Sally Mugabe, is not a Zimbabwean, she's a Ghanaian. And she met her husband, President Robert Mugabe, in Ghana at St. Mary's College, where he was a teacher in Takoradi, Ghana. And it was there that he talked to her about Rhodesia. And what ended up happening is she fell in love with him, and she liberated Ghana, first African country to be independent, March 6, 1957. First country out of the anti-colonial resistance movement to have a political party, not a political front, not a political movement, but a party to unite the people against British colonialism. And they taught a very fundamental thing, even in the days of liberation, about the women's question. And Nkrumah said to us, the best way to measure the degree of a country's revolutionary awareness is by the political maturity of the women. And here's Sally Mugabe, a young woman at that time, taking that foundation, taking that orientation, taking that mission into Rhodesia, the most contested territory in southern Africa. Many people, when they come to talk about apartheid, many people will not argue that apartheid was the most vicious form of colonialism, the most vicious manifestation of it. That is why South Africa is the only country that did not have to engage in armed struggle to liberate itself from it. Apartheid in Mozambique had to be won through armed struggle. Apartheid in Angola by the Portuguese had to be won through armed struggle. German colonialism, German apartheid in Namibia had to be won through armed struggle. And in the case of Zimbabwe, it had to be won through a 14-year armed struggle, referred to as the Chimurenga, which means revolution in the language Shona, which is the dominant language in Zimbabwe. They had no choice. These Rhodesians were some of the most vicious human beings the world has seen. You talk about George Wallace, you talk about Orville Farbus, you talk about Ross Barnett. Let me tell you about Ian Smith. In 1961, when they talked to him about when will the blacks become masters of their own destiny, this was in 1961, he said maybe in 1,000 years we can have the conversation. Before him was a prime minister named Jeffrey Huggins. They said, what is your relationship to the black Africans? He said, our relationship to them is equivalent to the relationship that a rider has with his horse. So it was no way that you were going to engage in positive action campaigns, i.e. strikes, demonstrations, boycotts, and overcome these people. You had to get a gun. Not because of your appetite for violence, but your appetite for justice.